Cheat me out of a sales commission? Have fun in jail for falsifying government documents.
What's up, my Beardos and Weirdos? Thank you again for checking out another video. Today we're talking about r/NuclearRevenge. And really quick, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been subscribing lately. It's crazy to see that almost 500 of you guys want to see what kind of videos we have upcoming. And I'm so grateful to all of you who are coming along. I'm just super stoked to be able to keep making these for fun and have people enjoy them. So today we're covering 3 stories. The first story is about someone who steals a sales commission. The second story is about a bodyguard who stands up for himself, but in the worst way. And the last story is about someone who describes himself as going supernova when they find out an elderly individual is mistreated. Alright, let's jump into it.
Cheat me out of a sales commission? Have fun in jail for falsifying government documents. About 10 years ago, I took a job with a newer government contracting company. I was a systems engineer at the time, just getting into cybersecurity, or information assurance as it was then called. I met with several C-level execs as well as 2 VPs. All assured me that they wanted to bring me on board, and I had a billet for my TS/SCI. For those that don't know, having an SCI is a meal ticket, but you have to have an actual billet on a contract to retain it. It's not like a TS, where you can keep it but not use it. After I came on board, it turns out they lied to me about being able to use my SCI, which was strike number 1. Still, it was good pay, great work-life balance, and a chance to gain experience in cyber as opposed to being on call all the time. At one point, the VP of Sales had a sales meeting with a big client. The sales engineer who was familiar with the contract was out on personal leave with an emergency. VP calls me and assesses that I know enough to take his place. In order to do this, I had to leave the client site I was working with and come meet him. I knew this was going to push my workload back a bit, so I jokingly asked if I'd be getting a commission since I'd have to work a few hours to finish up a few briefs. VP says,
"Yes, we give commissions based on experience and how much you contribute."
Unfortunately, I didn't get that in writing. The meeting goes well. Really well. Every question and scenario they asked about, I was able to demonstrate how the company could handle it and showed that I had direct hands-on experience doing so already. Multi-million-dollar contract. On the way back, the VP calls back to the main office and says,
"The only hang-up is that they want references of other government agencies that have used us. I'll call XYZ and call in a favor. He'll vouch for us."
I didn't think anything of this at the time. Fast forward a month or 2 later, and the bid is delivered. VP informs me that he'll likely win because he knows 2 other companies that bid, and somehow knows that their price is 4 to 5 million more. I'm stoked because even at the lowest level of commission, I'm looking at an enormous check, mid-5 digits. Time goes by, and the contract is awarded. I'm patiently awaiting my commission, and a couple of months go by and nothing. Finally, I ask HR about it, and they know nothing about this. I talk to contracting, and they state, normally that commission goes to the SC, but since he was fired between the meeting and the time the bid was accepted, it goes to the VP. With an incredulous look on my face, I ask them what they mean, because I was the SC who attended the meetings. It turns out, scummy VP never gave me credit for attending the meeting, downplayed my role as minimal, and once the SE who was supposed to go was let go, he figured he could keep the rather large commission himself. The company was absolutely unwilling to revisit the situation, as I wasn't really an SE, not in my primary function. I was really friggin' angry, and began talking with my dad about my options. We went through everything, and when I relayed the bit about the references, his eyes lit up. He said it'd probably be pretty tough to prove that I deserved the commission check, that maybe I'd win, maybe not. But he did point out that it did sound suspiciously like he was lying on a government form. That's a big no-no.
Nuclear revenge mode. Engaged.
I made a discreet inquiry to one of my dad's friends who is a government comptroller. My dad is a retired government employee who made SES. He gave me a whistleblower avenue to disclose misconduct, and he assured me that he would see it followed up upon. It turns out that the VP did in fact lie on several government forms. Something like the first 4 government contract had falsified information, claiming that the company had been used by other contractors, when that was not actually the case. I didn't hear anything back for a while, except that the complaint had been submitted and was being investigated seriously. I found out a few years later that the VP ended up getting caught not just for falsifying the docs, he got caught receiving benefits for doing so. In an effort to save his ash, he agreed to cooperate with the feds. It turns out the CTO and his sister, the CEO, were personally involved in active bribery and embezzlement of government contracts, to the tune of 10 million or so. There's a lot of nuances to the end results, but essentially the CTO tried to protect his sister and the CEO and got caught obstructing justice. The CEO faced 5 years in jail, the CTO was sentenced to 88 months, and was facing deportation. The company was broken up, and its physical assets sold off. Its employees who were working on government contracts, including me, were essentially sold to a competitor who retained them for the duration. All because they were too greedy to pay me a commission check. All of this is documented. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to post the name of the ex-company or the execs that went to jail, so I won't unless the mods okay it. Edit, grammar spelling. Oh, that's some sweet, sweet revenge there. I think we've all had a job where someone in an upper position has promised us something that they failed to deliver on, and we haven't found any options available to us, any alternative routes to take. And reading stories like this gives me hope that maybe in the future, if this ever happens to me again, there's something I can do, even if I have to pull a few strings and ask some favors from someone around me. Great work, OP. Bully bodyguard could bully no more. I've been lurking in this sub for a few weeks now, and I remembered a story that my dad told me when I was young. He told me the story while he was teaching me about respecting others regardless of their social status. On mobile, TLDR, at the end. This story is an incident that my dad's friend, Uncle G, R.I.P., had witnessed back when they were young engineers during the 80s. Uncle G worked in a small shop that fabricates machine parts. These parts can be easily stolen because most of them are small. Naturally, security around the shop is needed. They hire a security guard, SG, for this purpose. Uncle G described SG as a quiet man of lean body and average height. SG takes his job seriously. He is helpful when needed, only talks when somebody asks him something, never starts any conversation. Even if SG's demeanor is quiet, nobody in the shop messes with him because he does his job well. Except for the boss's bodyguard, BG. BG would be at the shop when his boss is there. During those times that the boss is in the office, BG would come out and bully SG. BG would make sure that the boss would not hear or see him slap or hit around SG, call him offensive names, and basically be a physical offensive ashhole to SG. SG never fought back. The most that he would do would be to shield himself from BG's hits. Some of the employees would ask SG why he never told the boss about what was happening. SG just stayed silent, and sometimes would say that the boss would never believe him because BG is very close to the boss. BG bullied him for weeks. One night, the shop nearing close time, BG arrived alone for an errand. No boss, hence he is free to bully SG as worse as he wants, and that is what he did. Uncle G was finishing up his work for the day, along with his teammates, when they heard a sound of a gunshot. Instead of running to see what the commotion was, Uncle G herded his team behind a huge machine and watched the scene unfold. They saw BG bleeding and limply running towards some closet. SG was just a few steps behind him, gun in his swaying hand, walking like he owns the place. BG couldn't open the closet door and was panicking now, begging for SG to have mercy on him. SG raised the gun and shot him in the head. Then he walked towards the station, grabbed his things, and calmly walked out of the shop. My dad asked Uncle G why his first instinct was to hide and not see what the noise was about. Uncle G said that, in a way, he was expecting something like this to happen. He also wanted his team to be safe. He said that they all knew SG is a smart and tough guy who wouldn't take shiz from anybody, so one would be confused as to why he never fought back when bullying started. Uncle G said that maybe SG never really snapped because of the bullying. Maybe SG had let BG let his guard down, assuming SG was a wimp, waited until the opportunity came, and took it. I tried researching for this incident in the local news, but never found any. My dad never knew if the incident was ever reported or if SG was apprehended. TLDR. Boss bodyguard bullies a lowly security guard for weeks. Security guard endures it, waited for, then took the opportunity to kill him. Edit. It is quite understandable to think that this must be fake. Like I mentioned, it was a story that my dad's friend told him. Also, I was not able to find any news about this through Google. According to my dad, it happened in the 80s and might have made it into some tabloid news, but never into those big newspapers. I'm gonna give this an r/thathappened rating. Yep, good story. Don't think it happened. As the author writes in the end, it's a story told to an individual who was then told to him that he then wrote down, so I'm gonna give it an r/thathappened rating.
I didn't go nuclear, I went supernova.
This is my first post on here, so please bear with me. Just a little background to start off. I was an exterminator for better than a decade, and was only a few credits shy of a degree in entomology. Needless to say, I know my stuff when it comes to anything one might consider creepy and or crawly. With all this being said, I was a specialist for the absolute worst kinds of infestations. I treated for bedbugs, small cousins to ticks that only drink human blood. I bet you think you know where this is going, and just to cut you off, no, I never intentionally infested anyone. I was wondering that. In fact, the revenge in the story isn't even for me. It was for what turned out to be one of the sweetest women I have ever met. For the purpose of the story, we are going to call her Mary. She was a nurse in World War II. I was called out to Mary's home by the management of the subsidized apartments that had complained about a small bug issue. What I found when I got there was not a small bug issue, and still haunts me to this day. When Mary answered the door, she was covered in bedbugs. Her hair, her clothes, even crawling on her hands. Without going into too much grisly detail about insect biology, this isn't normal. Bedbugs don't like touching human skin, and they don't hunt when people are up and moving. That is why the bed is the most prevalent place to find them, and thus the name. I immediately called an ambulance, waited on them to arrive, and warned them about the very real possibility that anywhere they took her would be in severe danger of being infested if they didn't do anything to decontaminate her. The poor woman was suffering from anemia, and it was luck of biology that she hadn't gone into toxic shock from the number of bites that she had received. When she was rushed off, after having to be hosed off, literally sprayed with a hose, and having her clothes taken from her in semi-private, revenge mode started. Bedbug treatments are expensive. Very expensive, and I had made a lot of contacts with the local Department of Social Services and the Adult Protective Services because of the amount of charity work I had done. Every single one of them got a phone call. Subsidized apartments have rules, including that they have to make routine checks. For an infestation to get to that level, it had gone unchecked for years. She had been eaten alive for years. I called the local news, warned every neighbor, and collected statements about exactly how often the maintenance staff and management had entered the apartments. Once DSS and APS was done, I urged every single person who was put in jeopardy of infestation to file civil suits, and recommended a lawyer I had done some work for in the past. He was more than happy to take the cases as a class action suit. By the end, I had the manager of the apartments arrested for elderly abuse and neglect, and the entire staff from top down was fired. They had been falsifying paperwork saying that they'd been inside the apartments performing routine maintenance and generally scamming the government for services they didn't actually provide. I visited Mary for a while after that, checking in since it didn't seem anyone else had in a long time. She was a wonderful person, and she never deserved to have to live like that. Her health recovered for a while, but time eventually came for her. I'll never forget her, or forgive the people that allowed it to happen in the first place. Another tough read. Oh, thanks for sharing that, OP, but I hope in addition to getting justice, they were served some nice punitive remunerative awards. I hope they were provided something in monetary value for the time and pain that they went through with all this. Another tough read. I can see why they said they went supernova, not nuclear. Wow. That's a lot of steps to take, and thankfully you were there to take them with them. Thanks for sharing that, OP.
Alright, my Beardos and Weirdos, that was r/NuclearRevenge. I really appreciate all of you that have come by to check out this video, and thank you again for subscribing to the channel. I'm just thankful for each and every one of you that decides to join along and keep an eye out for when these videos come out. I'm doing these for fun, and I'm super grateful to all of you, so thank you. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, where we take it one topic at a time.